Hi everyone, welcome to our Q&A about studying a Masters of Archaeology in Leiden. My name is Vera, I'm the student ambassador, and with me is Sveta, one of our students as well. We will be briefly discussing all the programs we have on offer, and then we will switch to a Q&A. So know that this is your opportunity to ask questions to current students. So that will be Sveta and I. Because this is the perfect opportunity to ask questions to students themselves instead of just reading things on the website. So please make use of it. Use the presenters wall, the Q&A on the side of your screen to send in your questions. We will answer them after our brief presentation. And also a note, somewhere else on this platform, you can watch a video on what all the programs entail in detail. But of course, we will go briefly over them now as well. Just so you know, for more information, please visit the platform. So why this MA in Leiden? Just briefly about archaeology in Leiden itself. We are our own faculty, so we have our own building, our own facilities and labs. We consistently score in the top 10 of doing research. So this is the staff that's actually teaching you as well. So the people doing research here at the faculty are also the ones teaching you about it. So it's very integrated. You really see what people are working on currently. You can work on projects with them. You can write your thesis on these projects as well. And it's just a great opportunity to be in the same building with all archaeologists, basically studying the same thing you do, interested in the past as well. So all the people you will meet when you're at the faculty are usually archaeologists as well. So that's sort of like a nice atmosphere, a little bit of an archaeology bubble you will get in. And then about the courses themselves, we have 4 courses. 3 of them are a Masters of Arts, and then we also have Archaeological Science, which is a Master of Sciences. So we have Applied Archaeology, Global Archaeology, Heritage and Museum Studies, and then the Archaeological Science program. These are 1-year programs. We also have a 2-year Research Masters program. Sveta is doing that one, so she can tell you more about that later. And you can also ask questions about this in the chat box. I'm doing the Global Archaeology 1-year track. So if you have any specific questions about that, feel free to ask them as well. But the idea is that within all of these tracks, you have a bit of the freedom to choose a region or a focus area for that. And this can be a time period, this can be a region, but we will come to that later. It also includes general courses, so we will get courses on archaeological theory, see what the current debates are within archaeology, how to apply those to your own thesis and your own research. You can do electives within as well as outside of archaeology to expand a little bit. So say you're doing sciences, but you're also interested in heritage, that's not a problem. You can still take an elective and get a bit of that heritage knowledge in and get a bit up to date on those debates as well. But that's going a bit ahead. Let me explain the tracks first. So this goes for all the tracks. You have flexibility in the choices you have. There's a bit of a set program, but you have options to choose region courses. So that's sort of more small seminar kind of thing in which you will be with people from all the different tracks. So everybody's bringing in different knowledge, but you will get a little bit more into detail on a specific region or a specific time period. And again, we have our own labs, our own facilities, a lot of research projects going on. So within your master's, definitely make use of that. Then we have our first track, Applied Archaeology. Well, I'm not going to read out loud what I said here. Please feel free to read it. But in general, this is more of the one focused on working for archaeological companies or heritage agencies and see how it is done in practice. It's also together with the University of Applied Science, Applied University of Saxion, and it really has a focus on going out in the field, how currently archaeology is being done and how to intertwine all these things in terms of policy, in terms of making reports. It's really more the practical side of archaeology. You apply your knowledge to current projects. So the focus will be a bit more heavily on the Netherlands, or the case studies will mostly be about the Netherlands, but it does not mean that you cannot apply this knowledge going abroad or coming in as an international student and then applying this knowledge back in your home country. That's totally possible. It's just to contextualize the things we're doing. There will mostly be Dutch cases since we are based in the Netherlands, and it will allow you to go out and actually go on these digs or see these excavations and projects yourself. Then we have heritage and museum studies. A note with this is that this has an archaeological focus. So it's not just any museums, or it really is about how archaeology is presented in museums or debates around archaeological objects. Think of things of repatriation, think of agencies like UNESCO, think about ethics and, for example, how to display or should we display human remains. These are all things and debates you'll get into with the Heritage and Museum Studies track or program. It includes museology as well, different perspectives. So it will not just be you discussing this amongst yourself. You will actually see all these different perspectives, read from different indigenous perspectives as well. So it will not just be, for example, what one museum has to say about their objects. It will be how other people perceive this as well. You will definitely be putting this in a debate and see how things change over time and where we should be heading in the future as well. Then we have the Archaeological Science Masters. This will be about how to apply scientific methodologies when you're doing archaeological research. And within this, you have a few specializations. So you have botany, working with plant remains. You have osteology, working with human remains. You have zoology, working with animal bones. You have digital archaeology, in which you can look at modeling, but also GIS, big data. And then there's also the material studies specialization, in which you will be working with, as you can see here as an example, pottery, but this could be any different things. It also includes experimental archaeology. So know that you will be putting the methodologies in a general framework, and then you choose a specialization on which you will write your thesis as well. Then we have our last track, global archaeology. This is more about zooming out and seeing the bigger picture. It's about archaeology more broadly. How do things change over time? How do things compare across regions? So you'll be constantly on this verge of the local, the regional, the global. You'll be zooming in and out of scales all the time. Think of climate change, connections, migrations. These are the big, broad topics you'll be looking at, and you will be contextualizing that within a certain region or within a certain time period. You will also be relaying that back to how studying these developments in the past are relevant to us now and how they can help. For example, issues on climate change. How can looking at that from a perspective as an archaeologist help us in the future? So these are some of the focus areas you can focus on. Then you have human origins, Europe. The more heavier focus here is on Northwestern Europe, I would say, but it is definitely possible to do other countries or other regions within Europe as well. We have West Asia, the Mediterranean, and the Americas. We all have staff that works on these areas and teaches you. But if you have your own idea, please feel free to always contact supervisors. So just because we might not offer a class on it doesn't mean that you cannot write your thesis on it. I think that's good to note here. I myself am a global archaeology student, so I thought, well, as Sveta will do with the research masters, to hear a bit of why I chose global archaeology and what I'm doing with my MA. The photos on the left show the same pottery types, but in Rome and in Jerusalem. And that really, that's what I've written my bachelor thesis about connections between the Eastern Mediterranean and the Western Mediterranean, how that changes going into the early medieval times. And it really got me thinking about all these long-distance connections and how material can really sort of provide a different view on that than, for example, written sources do in this time. Because written sources usually claim that there is a big seas and connections between East and West after the fall of the Roman Empire, however you want to call it, or however historians have called it. But then the material really reflects something else. And that's what I really liked and got me thinking about doing global archaeology, because then you really get the chance to see those bigger pictures and really zoom out and then zoom back in again on a different region to see how it manifests there. And then for my master's, I'm now, I've been on fieldwork to Jordan. So this is what I will be writing my master thesis about as well. Not on pottery this time, but I will be looking at burial gifts. So again, the material culture and really trying to see patterns there. Like, what kind of graves do we find? What kind of grave goods? Is it region specific? Do we find it only in a local area? Do we find it far away as well? So these are the kinds of things I hope to do in my master's now. And I think the courses I'm taking really prepare you for that as well. It is really about seeing things on different scales. So with that, I'm quite happy I chose global archaeology. But then we also have the option to do the 2 years research masters. The big difference here, I guess, is that it is kind of focused on preparing you towards a career in academia. It's also 2 years instead of 1. You have a bit more freedom to design your own curriculum, to do a bit more research, to have a bit more freedom in that, also because you have 2 years, but it also means there's some additional things you have to do. But these are also the things that are an added benefit, I guess, if you're trying to get into would like to go into academia after your master's. But I think Sveta can tell us a bit more about that. So I would like to give the floor to you, Sveta.
Yes, thank you. Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm Sveta. So originally I'm from Bulgaria, but I came to Leiden 5 years ago to do my bachelor's, and I decided to follow a research master track after I graduated. And the reason why I chose the research master was because, exactly as Vera said, we have more freedom to choose, to explore your options, to figure out what you're interested in, and to gain even more experience in projects and whatnot. And another aspect of the research master which I really liked was the teaching assistance. The fact that you help professors prepare courses, you teach some courses yourself, lead the tutorials, that I really liked. And especially if you want to pursue a career in academics, or you want to be a professor, and if you pursue a PhD, the teaching assistance is a really necessary training that you should gain, I think, in masters. But yeah, I can tell a bit about myself. Yes.
Go for it.
So yes, as I said, I came to Leiden 5 years ago to do my bachelor's, and I specialize in Ottoman period pottery from the Balkans. This is what I wrote my bachelor thesis about as well. Right now I expand the same topic into my research master thesis, but I also include network modeling. And for this reason, I follow mostly the digital archaeology track of the university. And yeah, you can see these pictures of me in the projects. I look very happy. And the picture in the middle is from a project in which we did in Greece this summer. One of my supervisors organized this, Unita Room. And instead of so we did field surveying in the regions of Halkida in Greece, and we did not only take pictures, we also worked, but it was a really fun experience. So this is one of the projects which the university offered to students, and we were helping organizing that. Also, I have a lot of different projects that I take part in. For example, this summer again I went to I went to Kosovo, again with my supervisor, to look at Ottoman period pottery, and also I went to Ephesus, again with my supervisor, to look at Ottoman period pottery, and we also did photogrammetry on these pots. So it was I gained a lot of different, a lot of experience in different fields, which are not necessarily related to my thesis, but I really enjoyed it. Again, because I followed the research master's track, I had the option to explore a lot and to just try out whatever I wanted to try out. But yeah, basically, that's that's it about me, I think. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask, of course, about the research master itself, or about the projects that the university offers, or any other opportunities it can possibly give you to expand your networking as well. So yeah.
Yes, really feel free to use this Q&A hour to ask all these questions. That's what we're here for. And once again, also the reminder that for a more detailed view, or if you want to review all the the different programs we have, again, to once again refer you to the platform to watch another video on that, where it will be explained in detail, and in which an example of a possible thesis is given as well, to give a bit more of a background and what you'll be, sort of closing off your program with.
Yes. Well, the social life in Leiden, I think, is very... there is social life if you want to be social. If not, that's also okay. One big difference that I noticed with a lot of universities is that the faculties in Leiden are not concentrated in one location, but they spread out throughout the city. So your social life is in the city itself. And of course, you need to have a bike very often.
That's a good tip.
So, but it's very nice because Leiden is a small university city. There are a lot of young people, a lot of bars, a lot of cool events, fun things to do. And it's a small city. It's a city town. So you could definitely, everything is close to each other. And that's what I like about it. The faculty of archaeology has a study association, Terra. They also do some activities, roughly 2 activities per week. And also they have different groups. They specialize in different parts of archaeology, different regions. And you're also secretary of Terra a long time ago.
Yes.
So you know even more about this study association. But they also have very interesting events, and to socialize with your fellow archaeologists, or even outside archaeology, of course. It's also an option.
True. Yeah. So it is an association. Well, Terra at least is an association run by our students as well. Yeah. So it is, organized by people you already know. They might be in your year, and it's, again, like you said before, a good way of getting to know, your fellow archaeologists, really. And this includes study trips, museum visits, game nights, drinks, lectures. These are not just organized by the students, but also by staff and the faculty itself. So you sometimes have big guest lecturers coming in. We have symposiums organized. So this is also a nice way of, sometimes after a lecture, you're already at the faculty, and then a lecture will start 5 minutes after your own lecture. So it's a good way of sort of seeing what other researchers are doing, or what other staff at the faculty is doing. It's, once again, that really, like, the archaeology bubble you're in, of the atmosphere of the faculty, in which it feels very approachable, very easy to get to know fellow staff and students.
And very international as well.
Yes, especially the master program, it's almost 50-50. Students, Dutch students versus international students. Let's see. You already talked about all the events going on.
Yes.
Some of these are at the museums. There's plenty of museums in Leiden. We have the National Museum of Antiquities as well. Really interesting for any archaeologist, really.
And you can enter for free if you're an archaeologist, right?
As well, yes. As an archaeology student, it's free to enter. So, good tip again. There's also the Museum of Ethnology. We have Naturalis, so that's more human origins, perhaps, or more the biological side of it. We have a Japan Museum. We have the National Museum, I think, on science in general, how it develops. So that's also an interesting museum to visit. Let's see. If we go to the next slide, your future after a master's in archaeology. Yes, we definitely can recommend to do an MA. You can start as an archaeologist after your BA, but with an MA you have more opportunity to grow and to get into different positions that you cannot get into with just a BA. For example, to become a supervisor, an MA is often required. So you can start as a field archaeologist or in junior positions, but to to get into senior positions or supervisor positions, often an MA is needed. But there's different sort of fields archaeologists go into. Some will pursue a PhD or work as researchers at the university. Some people go into the field and work as field archaeologists for commercial companies or as digital specialists. There's still different types of jobs you can do within those companies, so it will not just be the excavation part. Into government and policy making as heritage specialists, but also all the analytical skills you've gained as an archaeology by going through so much data and then gathering the most information out of it and making sense of it. These are skills that apply outside of archaeology as well. So government policy making can be in terms of heritage or archaeology or how to deal with certain companies, but it could also mean just more in general or at different government agencies outside of heritage. People get to work in museums as well, in PR, as lecturers, as so teachers to groups of students that come in or groups of children that come in, any group that comes in basically, but also as a specialist doing research behind the scenes, or as the conservator, is that what you call it,
I
of
think
a
so.
museum? We have some alumni that worked their way up to that as well, and now they're curating departments within museums as well. And we have quite some students that end up doing journalist or becoming journalists, either photography or writing pieces for different newspapers on heritage-related issues, archaeology-related issues, whenever new big finds come up that make it to the news. So this is, again, a more general overview of this. About 60% will work in archaeology, and about 40% will find a job outside of archaeology. And I think the group outside of archaeology is growing every year, which I think goes to show that archaeology is, well, applicable outside of our own field as well. Again, all these skills you gain and all this, also the teamwork you learn and all the general skills you develop, the writing skills, the presenting skills, sifting through the data, so also the digital skills are very applicable outside of archaeology too. But when we look outside of archaeology, you can see it gets more split up. But again, interesting to notice here, I think, is the ICT aspect or the administration and consultancy aspect. So giving advice, working behind the scenes again, or becoming science support staff. Let's see. So I think we've covered most of our brief overview of archaeology and Leiden in general. So we would like to open the floor now to questions. So let's see. Is it possible to do fieldwork during your master?
Yes, of course. Of course. Especially in the summer period when there's no lectures, there's usually so many projects. So it's always possible to do fieldwork, either for credits. You can choose to do an elective, I think.
Yes.
Of fieldwork, and you can do fieldwork for credits if you write a report after that. And you submit it, and then you can get credits. But otherwise, you can also just do fieldwork for fun, for the sake of it.
Yeah, or
fieldwork
preparation
related to your thesis as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so that's definitely possible.
Yes, and indeed, when most people go on excavation will be in summertime, but you also have January off, so that's also a time people use or take to do field work. But field work doesn't have to be archaeological field work. I mean, it also can include doing a museum internship or at a heritage agency or working in our own labs. So you don't have to go abroad or on site to do an internship. That's also good to note. So you don't have to necessarily travel abroad or do it in summer. There's also other options if you decide to stay closer to home and work in a museum or work on collections from our own, our faculty has, for example. You can do that in your own time throughout the week and use that as an elective to get an internship.
Yes, for sure.
Let's see. If you decide for the science MSc, does that mean I cannot choose any heritage-related courses? Because I am interested in both. Yes, it's again a little bit like with the elective. Yes. You still have options to choose courses offered by the archaeology faculty that are not necessarily strictly what you think of when you do archaeological science. Of course, you have these courses that you will have to take on methodology, one of the specialization courses in, for example, osteology. But then you still have the option to do regent courses. You will have to take 2. And then you also have the option to take 2 electives. And one of these electives could be in heritage, for example.
Yeah, for sure. You have a lot of options to combine the different fields. So it's not exclusive just for one track. And if you're interested in more things, like for example, I'm doing digital archaeology, but also global archaeology with the Ottoman studies. But I'm doing both, so definitely it's possible. It's up to you. Whatever you want to do, there's always a way to do it in the faculty. So
yeah, that's true.
It's definitely possible.
It's a nice thing that there's still a lot of overlap with the regent courses. So it's not that you will be split up in that global group or in that heritage group. You will still mix and match, and everybody takes their own perspectives on things. Like, as you're saying, you're combining so many different things that will definitely give a different take than someone doing heritage studies. So that also leads to very interesting debates. For sure.
Yeah, I'm thinking I should do heritage now a little bit because it is very interesting. You can combine so many courses, and for sure, that's one of the best sides of their program, I think.
Yes, definitely the variety and the scope of things. The fact that you can work in a lab, but then also work in a museum within the same faculty. I think that's very interesting and sort of giving a whole big overview of what archaeology can be.
For sure.
That's really cool. Let's see, how are the PreMasters set up? And would it be possible to shadow a current student for a day? The PreMasters are set up quite individually, so it's good to know what a PreMaster is. If you would like to do an MA in archaeology but do not necessarily have the right background in it, for example, you haven't done an archaeology MA or haven't done courses related to osteoarchaeology, if you would like to do the osteoarchaeology masters. So if there's a gap in what you've done in your bachelor's and would like to do in your master's, there's the option to do a 1-year PreMaster. But that really depends on what master program you would like to do. And you can set this up together with the bachelor study advisors. So those are the persons to contact for discussing the options for PreMasters. I think I have a slide on it with the right email address for this. Let me find it for you so you can write it down. Yes, here we go. So for the PreMasters, please contact BA Study Advisor at arch.leidenuniv.nl. And here you also see other handy email addresses. So if you're unsure about if you qualify, another option is to also email our Board of Admissions, admission@arch.leidenuniv.nl. They can also help you, and if not, refer you to the study advisors for a PreMaster, for example. And then about the shadowing a student. At the moment, we do offer this for the bachelors, so that will be first year's bachelor courses, so not necessarily the option to shadow masters. We unfortunately do not do that, but feel free to send an email, because maybe there is the option to just come by for the day and still have a look at the labs, for example, if that's something you're interested in, and speak to other students. That is something we possibly can offer, but not to just shadow a whole student for a day. Unfortunately, not for the masters. Can you tell us something about the career? Can we go a little bit down on the questions, please? Yes. Can you tell us something about the career prospect? Is it difficult to find a job with this expertise? Is it possible to use the connections of the university, maybe a research team?
Well, it is possible to use connections within the university, for sure. A lot of the professors have their own grants with their own projects going on, and they are in need of PhD students, or even somebody, like, for example, I think the osteology and zoology as well, like working for a project, I think. I'm not very familiar with the osteology and zoology, I'm sorry. But that's definitely possible. And what was the first part of the career? The career process. Well, as Vera showed earlier, like on previous slides, archaeology is very, well, at least the skills you earn while studying archaeology are very applicable to a lot of different fields. Although at first it might not seem like that, because when you say archaeology, it sounds very niche, very in its own bubble. But in reality, a lot of the skills are applicable for almost every other job possible. For example, the digital archaeology track, you learn a lot of things. You can learn programming if you would like, which of course programming, we all know it's connected with every job possible, probably. But also, as I say, photography, photogrammetry, 3D modeling. I'm talking about the digital archaeology track, as this is like the one that I know best about. Also surveying and a lot of geological work as well. So you can also be a geologist as well, if that's something that you're interested in. Surveying, computational archaeology as well. That's the databases, whatnot. So a lot of the skills you develop are applicable for almost everything. Yeah, but because right now computers are really the computer specialists in high demand. So that's. But I'm biased as well. So.
Yeah, so I guess a few examples of these are some alumni that are now security specialists, for example, for the government, or work for a bank, something not archaeology related per se.
If you're into numismatics.
Well, no. Also for digital archaeology, but then now we're really zooming in on digital archaeology. But with your expertise, again, you can also work for archaeological companies. You can use your knowledge for museums to curate programs, for example, or exhibitions, work on that. And again, a lot of people end up for heritage agencies, governments, municipalities, in policy making and administration, in logistics. So also having the overview of things, I think archaeologists generally are quite good in. And then again, of course, people pursue to do a PhD or do research at a university or another institution. So these are, again, the types of things you can think about. Sveta, what was it like coming to the Netherlands as an international student?
It's such a long time ago. Well, my first year, I was lucky because as a first year bachelor, I had the option to be in student housing with a lot of international students who also did archaeology. So we were all in the same situation, kind of far from home. But that really helped me get used to the environment in Leiden, to get used to the faculty and the university life, because the system in Bulgaria is very different than the system here, so that took a bit of time adjusting. But yeah, overall, I did find a very welcoming environment, very warm people, especially within the faculty. It's extremely international orientated community, welcoming, and honestly, I had the best time of my life as a student in Leiden. If it comes to the language, well, I mean, I think the majority of Dutch people speak English. So if you're worried about having to know Dutch, well, I think you're going to be okay with English, I think. Yeah, I mean, I've been fine. My Dutch is a little bit bad. Yeah, so I'm still okay. I manage. Yeah, a lot of the also, for example, if GPs, hospital issues, I hope that never happens, but who knows? Or if you have to deal with government, how do you call it, taxes, whatnot, there's always the option to do that in English and to, yeah, basically it's okay. It's not a big issue, the language. But yeah, that's all I can say about it. Pretty much, it's. Of course, wherever you go, you're gonna miss home a little bit, but but it's definitely worth it for me. And that was the best decision I've made. So, yeah.
I would like to ask a follow-up question then, personal. Why did you choose Leiden?
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to exactly find this environment of a lot of international people. I wanted to see how it is also to study and speak in English all the time, because of course I didn't do that before. I wanted to experience a different culture, to learn more. And I definitely did learn a lot, and that helped me also change my perspective of my own country, let's say, or the world and whatnot. I grew up as a person, I feel, here. And this is exactly what I was looking forward to. And also another thing in Leiden, the tuition fees, for example, are really good price-wise for people from the EU. That's also,
I can show a little slide on the tuition fees as well. For those that are not aware yet, let's see. So for EU, EEA students, Swiss and from Suriname, the prices are 2,209 euros per academic year. And for people outside of the EU and EEA, this is 19,300. Just so you have that information out there as well. At the same time, while we're at this slide, the deadlines, because we have the option to start in February as well. So the beginning of the academic year and the first semester is in September. So this is when the bulk of students start their MA, but it's also the option to start in February. And if you need a visa or resident permit, so again, this is if you're from outside EU or EEA, then for starting in February, the deadline is the 15th of October. If you're from the EU, then it is the 15th of November. And for September, it's the 1st of April or the 15th of May. Just as a heads up, so you have that information as well. Let's see if we can get another question up. Thanks, Sveta.
Of course.
What has been your experiences with finding housing in Leiden? I can say start early is a good advice.
Yes, for sure.
In general. And the university also has a really useful webpage, especially for international students when it comes to housing. I will put up the slide again for you here. Let me see. No slide. This is again, if you go to the international students page, you can find one that is on financial matters and housing. So those are good sites to get an overview of the budget and the types of housing and ways of getting your accommodation here in Leiden. It's good to note that it's worth it to expand your scope a little bit and look for houses in The Hague, for example, which is a lot of students live there, I think, and it's 20 minutes, right?
Even
Maybe
less.
even less. Yeah, it's probably
it's
less.
Very close.
Yeah.
And The Hague is a bigger city, so you have more housing options. For me, I definitely look into the Facebook groups for housing in Leiden and The Hague. So
it's called,
I think, literally Leiden Housing.
Leiden Housing.
If you search for Leiden Housing, I'm sure that a lot of options will come up. But yeah, start as early as possible. And of course, there is always options to like temporary places until we find something permanent. But
subletting and things like that.
Yes, but
And as soon as you have come to the city and start to get to know other people, it's also sort of this, you get to know of things through other people, but that of course doesn't help you if you're not here yet. But it's good to know that if you're, for example, subletting or do not have a place for a full year, that often people will help each other out and hear of something and tell each other. So it does get easier once you're here.
Yeah, for sure. That's how I found my place, through friends.
Yeah, the same for me. I'm living with one of my friends now because her other roommate moved out. So this is also kind of how it works. But there's also estate agencies, things you can look up that also sublet rooms. There's the option to live with housemates, but there's also the option to have a studio, for example. But again, a lot of the information is on the international student page. It's definitely a good page to get started. To familiarize yourself with ways of, how Leiden works, I guess.
Yes.
Here we go. I have a couple of questions. What does a week in human osteology look like? How many hours on campus per week? Is there fieldwork abroad? involved in some courses. I am starting in February. Are the classes in archaeology big? Thank you. Okay, let's start with the first question. What does a week in human osteology look like? Well, neither of us are in that specific track. But what it looks like is you will probably have one of your core courses that is related to archaeological science. So that can mean, for example, statistics or visualizing data. That could be one course you'll be taking. Usually courses are 2 hours, 3 hours a week. You'll be likely taking one of the region courses as well. So that could, for example, be Neolithization in West Asia. That's one of the courses you can take. You could take that. That's another 2 hours. And then you will have the specialization course, Human Osteology, in which you'll be working in the lab together with all the other people doing the specialization. And that's another 2-3 hours. So contact hours, I'd say 8 to 10-ish, less 8, I'd say. But then there's also all the work you do yourself, and maybe there might be group work involved as well. So those are the hours you have to work on stuff yourself.
Yeah, also I think it really depends. In some blocks, because the year is divided in 4 blocks, in some blocks you would have more courses, in some less. But that also depends on you, what you would like to choose as a specialization courses and so on. So yeah, it really depends, I think. Also, if you would like to do internship, I think they offer a lot of internships for osteology in the lab of Leiden. Yeah. So you could spend all day in the lab if you would like to do internships. Again, for credits or for fun or for your thesis. Yeah, depends. But yeah, another thing is, are the classes big? The classes are pretty small, I would say, because we offer a lot of different specialization courses, and in general if you compare the archaeology faculty to some other faculties, it's not that big. So the classes are not that big, I would say. Maybe like 30 students.
Max
for masters
30.
at least.
I would say the biggest classes will be 30 people.
Yeah, I think so too.
But some classes will definitely be smaller, and it will be, you have more discussions obviously as smaller as the class gets. But I think a good thing to note on why some blocks might be busier than others is because sometimes courses are only offered once a year. So if all the courses you like are taking place in block 3, that will be a bit more course heavy, but then you will have more free time in the other blocks. And it's also a way of sort of organizing what works for you. If you know that you want to work on your thesis in the second half of your year, you can get most credits done in the first semester, so you have more free time in the second semester, for example. But if you would like to spread it out more evenly, that's also an option. So it's good to, let me see this here, another slide. Let's see if it comes up. This will be a link to the general admission and application. But while you're at that website, there's also the option to look at some of the courses that are offered. So once again, feel free to, on the left-hand side of the website, scroll through all the different tabs we have, because they offer a lot of information on the different courses on offer, and they also offer testimonials by current students and alumni. So again, another way of seeing what students have been up to and are doing now. And there was another question, I think, there. Let's see. So we had the fieldwork question as well. So yes, we talked about this, I think, now. That you have the option to go abroad. You have the option to stay in the Netherlands. You have the option to stay in the lab. But also, it's not required. If you want to fill up your whole 60 ECTs with courses, that's also fine. It's not a compulsory component in the masters.
And also before entering the program as well, depends on what program you would like to do. If you would like to do applied archaeology, probably recommended to do field work and training. But for example, if you want to do heritage museums, you can also, it's not necessary for you to have any fieldwork experience. And I think for most actually of the masters it's not necessary. I think.
No, it's all optional.
And if in case your bachelor degree or if your previous education does not meet the requirements for the master's application, you can do a PreMaster, which already you do a field school in the PreMaster, I think. Right?
Yeah, that's
It's
right.
included.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
You will go on fieldwork together with the first year students
Yeah.
to learn the basic techniques and ways of doing archaeology in the Netherlands.
Yeah.
Is fieldwork training or field school required or recommended prior to entering the program? Again, I guess this depends on your BA background. If you have a BA that allows you to start the MA, then it is not required because you have the right qualifications. But it might be that you do not have, maybe it is a prerequisite. Please for that email ma studyadvisor@arc.leidenuniv.nl to check with them if it is a requirement. I studied engineering architecture, but I am more interested in older buildings. Is it possible to delve deeper into this during a master's in archaeology? We do have actually,
sure.
yes, yeah, medieval archaeology, especially in Europe. Well, not just in Europe, actually. Your supervisor
Yes.
works throughout the whole Mediterranean, going into West Asia, also in the Netherlands. So, yes, if you're interested in sort of medieval and later period archaeology, and especially buildings, that is an option. We also have we also offer courses on building materials. That's also one of the courses
urban
you can take.
archaeology as well.
Urban
I think.
yes, yeah.
But they focus most in Northwestern Europe. But again, it's possible to do whatever you like, pretty much.
Yes, yeah. But just know it is not necessarily a specific specialization in that sense. And also feel free for the electives to look at, for example, courses humanities are offering. Maybe you can take one course they offer on architecture there, and this way combine it with your MA in archaeology.
Yes, it's possible to take electives from other faculties as well, also other universities. You just need to contact the study advisor for that, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, and if there is a course that you're really interested in and you want to include it in your curriculum and get the credits for it, that's possible to do.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yeah. So it will be a bit more working your way around it, and most people will usually stay within the faculty, but just know that it is
there are options.
Yeah. Is there disability support, for example, learning disability, ADHD, available for students? Yes, we have Lustra Plus. This is the organization within the university you can contact for student help, for extra time, things like this. So that is called Lustra, Lustra, plus sign. So please look that up. It's by the General University, so it's not necessarily by our faculty. So please find it through the university websites. I hope that gives you the right information to get started. Let's see. Can we scroll down a bit on the questions? If you start in February instead of September, would you just do the second half of the Masters in September after, or would the program look different? No, it is exactly as you say. You will join in on the second semester, take the courses that are offered in the second semester, and then in September you will take the courses offered in the first semester. So I guess usually that means you will start with archaeological theory, because that is one of the courses usually offered in the second semester.
Yes.
And then in the first semester you will take the other courses that are unoffered then. Yeah. Let's see, are there any more questions coming in? Let's see. I am interested in researching medieval artifacts. Which specialization would you recommend?
I think the material study specialization would be one option, or the other one would be global archaeology again, because if you find the right supervisor which is interested in, which does research in the same period that you would like to do research in, there are always options to work with material. But yeah, also I think the material analysis, was it material analysis, right?
Material studies.
Material studies track is also very good, because there you go also have the option to not to have the option, but you have to take the course Archaeological Science, which is about applying scientific methods in archaeology, which if it's something that you're interested in, I will definitely recommend it. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, I think the biggest difference maybe between either doing archaeological science focusing on medieval artifacts or global archaeology and focusing on the artifacts is that with global archaeology you're perhaps be more looking at not necessarily analyzing the physical components, for example, of the artifacts and the more sort of scientific nitty-gritty things of it, but you'll be focusing more on okay, where have we found all these types of artifacts? What can we say about that? What does that say about connections? What does that say about production? So again, more the bigger questions that come from that material. But if you're more interested in really going into detail and really sort of knowing the ins and outs of the material, then maybe the archaeological science is more.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, if you're more hard science person, the archaeological science for sure. Yeah.
It's interesting, this question, because this is also what made me decide in the end to not go for material studies, but global archaeology, because I was sort of in a similar position where I really like working with the material, but then I realized I like the bigger questions more than necessarily going into the material itself.
Yeah.
Let's see, sorry I missed the first part. What were the admission dates? So if you're from the EU, then the admission dates for starting in February are November 15th and starting in September are May 15th. If you're from outside of the EU, please apply before October 15th if you're interested to start in February, and otherwise April 1st. I'm not sure if we can put that slide up again, so in case... Let's see, here we go. Yes. So we'll leave that up for a bit when we go to the next question. If we could have that on the screen, please. Thank you. Oh, this is a good one for you.
Yeah.
Any advice for applications on the Research Masters?
Well, for the Research Masters, you have to do a small interview before, as a part of the application. So what that is, you're going to either in person or online, you're going to have a conversation with a possible supervisor that you chose from the list of supervisors that I think they're set on the website under the where you have more information for the Research Master, for how to apply. You have this PDF with possible supervisors to choose from. So when you apply, you're going to choose one of the supervisors. And after that, you're going to have interview with the supervisor. What advice I would give is if you're really sure that you want to do the Research Master track and that you want to pursue a further career in academia, do make sure that they know that. Do make sure that you show how excited you are about the topic that you want to research. Even if you don't have a topic yet, at least something that you're interested in, what you would like to specialize in, or if you don't have any idea, at least what your interests are. It's always nice to be honest as well. You don't have to be to act overly ambitious or something like that. It's not like they would... we're all people at the end. So if you're also unsure of what you would like to do, and if you choose the supervisor and then you decide that you don't want to necessarily do what they're specializing in, for example, you choose something with material studies, but then you decide, I actually kind of want to do the heritage side. Well, that's also possible. It's okay in the future. Just be honest with what you know and what you want, or what you don't know that you want. So this is my advice. I think I did my interview during Corona, so for me it was a little bit weird because I didn't talk to anybody.
Online.
So it was online and it was a little bit awkward, but it worked out.
You're here now.
I'm here now, so. Yeah, just be honest, I think, that's all. And be yourself and show your passion, and that's what matters, I think.
Yeah. Are there also any other extra requirements for the Research Masters?
Extra requirements, I am not sure exactly. If you come from a Dutch university. I think one of the requirements was minimal 7.5, right, on the diploma. Oh no, on your thesis, I think. That's on the web page of the research master application. Yeah. But this is one of the requirements. Then the interview is the extra step that you need to take. For MA students, you don't have to do that. And yeah, to choose a supervisor beforehand, that's also what the necessary thing is. But other than that, no, I don't think there's anything more. Yeah.
Thanks. Let's see. Is it possible to go into academia without doing the research masters?
Yes.
Yes.
Of course.
Yes. You can also do the 1-year MA program. It doesn't disqualify you at all. It is just that, well, I mean, Sveta can speak.
Yeah, it's just that the research master offers you the opportunity to dive deeper into different topics, and because it's 2 years instead of 1, you have more time to think over your own research, to look into what else you can combine, to go beyond the faculty. It also gives you more time for fieldwork if you would like to do that. And of course the teaching assistance, which helps you prepare for teaching in the future. But doing a normal master like MA is also an option if you would like to continue with academia. Doing an RMA is not a necessity. It's just something that the idea of the program is to make you feel better prepared for the future in academia. But yeah.
Let's see. We have another question. If you start in February, do you get a break in between the semesters? How is the year broken up? Good question. If you start in February, you will have the summer period off. Usually that is June, July, August, to do field work, to have a break, to write your final assignments, because usually classes end in May, but then the deadlines are in June. So take into account that you don't have the whole of June off. You still have to be writing up your final assignments usually. And then the semester starts again in September, and you have late December and January off. So you have semester 1, which is broken up into blocks of 7 weeks. So you'll have block 1, 7 weeks. You'll have a week in between to catch a break and finish up the final assignments. Then you have block 2, which is again 7 weeks. And then you will, then it will be late December, January off. And then you have the same thing again in the second semester with the 7 blocks, 1 week in between 7 weeks.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, makes sense. It's the same as if you start in September, but we all follow the same kind of structure of the courses and the blocks. It's not a special on its own program, but yeah, you just have a break in the middle instead of having the summer last. Yeah, that's the difference.
Let's see, let's do the final question. If your affinity lies with the built environment and the associated history, which direction course of the master's fits best? It's a good question.
It is a good question. I would say global archaeology, in my opinion. It depends, of course, on which a region you would like to specialize in which period as well. But then again, if you would like to research the material itself used for the building the environment, or some kind of pottery tiles, that's also an option to specialize in the science tract of material studies. But yeah, again, it depends, as with the previous question that we got, if you would like to look at the bigger picture to answer questions from the material, or would you like to dive into the material and look at it more precisely, let's say.
I would like to add a little thing to this, because I feel like this is also really a good thing to look for into applied archaeology, urban archaeology.
That's also an option. Yeah.
How to deal with archaeology that's still standing or still there. How does this sort of development, how have cities developed over time? These are things, again, you can find in the records. So also applied archaeology is maybe the best one to get familiar with archives in that sense. And heritage for that as well. If you are interested in delving into the archives, looking at how to portray these kinds of things. So it really is about your focus in this, I think. And then I guess that is it for time. We would like to show you one last slide to find some more information. And again, a link to the video if you would like to revisit all the programs in more detail. Good luck on your choice of study, and thank you for being here.
Good luck. Thank you.